to open and close the door. Once we were inside, we had 4 hours, and that was that. Had anyone had to go outside and bring a screwdriver in, you would end the day of shooting with that. And for example, on the second day of shooting, we went down into the cave, we tested all systems, the camera was ready, and all of a sudden we realized that the battery for recording the data, the 3D data, did malfunctioned. So in the cave, within 1 hour, our technical people, Peter Zeitlinger, the cinematographer, his assistant, Erik Söllner, and Kaspar Kallas, our 3D systems designer, built a new battery from scratch, dismantling a few of our battery belts because the voltage was different, and reassembling, we had only one screwdriver, reassembling a completely new battery, and 50 minutes later our systems were running, and we had to scramble to do filming. So there was an enormous ingenuity. No, I would have loved to have 50 more minutes in the cave. I don't love that, because it took 50 precious minutes away from what we were able to do. But with the right people, with the right crew, a tiny crew, we were able to manage, and what we got away with some very beautiful images, I think. And I owe it to Peter Zeitlinger and Kaspar Kallas. I would also like to mention the music, Ernst Reisiger, which is absolutely extraordinary, and he was involved very early on in the whole procedure of doing the film.
Werner, can you tell us about the astonishing aerial shots in the film? I remember the first time I was watching, I kept looking for where the helicopter wing blade.
Well, it was a tiny drone, 3 arms, not longer than my arms, and in the center, a tiny camera, which was like 2 matchboxes, not larger than that. And that was this. But in the young 22-year-old Brit, Jonathan Watts, actually maneuvered it with a joystick. But of course, you couldn't fly too far, it would lose contact and go somewhere. And when we flew it through the Arc, Pont d'Arc, it was somehow beyond range, and we were ready to jump in the water and rescue the drone. But it was a beautiful tool, and at the end you see how it's recaptured, and it's a little bit a statement about our tools that we had.
Okay, so Eric mentioned it before, the alligators, the albino alligators.
Well, the alligators, I just love them. I just couldn't resist to do it, and I said to Eric, there will be radioactive mutant albino crocodiles in my film. And he kind of, after a pause, he asked, what? And I said, yes, it's true. And
coincidence, the projector broke down just before that sequence.
Anyway, and I kept saying, carry me out in a straitjacket at the end of the projection, but those wonderful creatures are just almost like us. They are spreading out, and they will occupy Chauvet Cave in maybe 2, 3, 4, 10,000 years from now. And what will they see? How do we see these images? It's completely strange, and we have no idea how did people see these images and what did they mean with it, and it's completely and utterly mysterious. And I think the radioactive albino crocodile is a great metaphor for me and for many of us.
I think you just wanted to say the word doppelganger, though, I think, in a voiceover.
Yes, I needed...
The whole sequence was the setup for that word.
I needed to put the word doppelganger into it, into the film. So these things happen, and I love it. And I love cinema for right that.
Well, we're going to quit while we had, and I think, well, let's got one or two more questions if they're really smart and pertain to the film.
Middle there, you young lady.
I would like to know, how did you convince them to let you do this? What actually did it?
Oh, with the scheme?
Well, when things are really coming to the essentials, I can speak with angels' tongues. And I had a session with a minister of culture. Luckily enough, he was a fan of my films, but I had to do some explaining, and I do these things quietly, but it somehow settled in. And it was clear after that meeting they would allow me to do it. But it's not only the Minister of Culture, the regional government has to give its okay, and the custodian of the cave, Madame Baffier, has to give the okay if there's too much CO2 gas, or if there was also a high level of radon gas, which had to be monitored all the time. She could have said, no, you have to be out, or you stepped over the boundaries and touched the ground. We would have been out in 5 minutes flat. So there was a whole chain of permits, but the real essential permit came from Mitterrand.
And you made them an offer you couldn't refuse, too.
Yes, well,
the French government own it. It's their cave, they own it. And
they own it for nothing. They get it like this, the French government. And Eric Nelson came up with this ingenious idea that I should offer to them that I would like to work for the French government, for the French Ministry of Culture, as an employee of the French Ministry of Culture, and they would have the film for free, but I had my price. I asked for €1 as a fee, and I explained I would not pay taxes in France for it, but in Germany. So I worked for €1 for the Ministry of Culture.
Have we been paid yet?
And it was your, well, I still have to go and
Adrian,
collect.
we have to, yeah, we have
I have to collect it yet, but I will make sure I'll get it.
The contract is too difficult.
We thank these gentlemen for bringing us their world premiere. You're the first audience to see this film. It's now in your hands. You go Twitter it, blog about it. Your People's Choice Award ballots are outside. Take it away. Let your friends know there are more screenings ahead of this film. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you especially to Eric and Werner.